30. And I will have, Joy, will you lead us in the, workshop? We're not gonna call it, do we call it the order roll call? Yes.
Yes.
Please.
Director Reed,
Here.
Director Serrato, Director McDaniel,
Present.
Director Samra, Director Nagy,
Here.
Director Nelson,
Here.
Director Pereira, Director Pedroso,
Here.
Director Amabile, Vice Chair Silvera.
Present. All right. We'll move on to public comment. This is the public's, comment is available in advance or during the meeting. The instructions on page 2.
We don't have to read them unless.
Okay. Is there anybody that would like to address this board?
Online.
No one online? All right. We'll close the public comment period, and we will now move on to item 3, the Housing and Homeless Workshop, and we will invite up Mr. Checkley.
Good afternoon, Director Silvera, members of the Merced County Association of Government Board. John Checkley, Deputy Director for Merced County Housing Homeless Services through Human Service Agency. I do want to start by saying I have invited our behavioral health partners to be a participant in this quarterly update, since so many of the changes that are taking place in this landscape obviously affect all of our jurisdictions, but they're really focusing on the behavioral health services, and we've seen that with the CARE Act, et cetera. One of the things that we've done, and is the landscape, right, we have in front of you changing perceptions. It could have been changing and any word to follow after that. So many changes have happened. Perhaps most notably for all of you is the Supreme Court ruling about Grant Pass versus Johnson, overturning the 8th Amendment protections that people experiencing homelessness had in public spaces. So, you know, over the last 8 or so years, we've seen a lot of public camping, which was under that ruling lawful under the Martin versus Boise. The Supreme Court overturned that back in June, July, and then closely on the heels of that Supreme Court decision, we had our governor's executive order that directed state departments to start abating encampments. And we immediately saw impacts in local jurisdictions. Literally the day prior to that, we saw folks in the city of Merced that were being moved from Caltrans property along the state right-of-way along Highway 99. Obviously, those people go somewhere. So we're in this really dynamic time of change when it comes to homeless services, as well as the enforcement of those. I know a lot of jurisdictions are already taking a look at their ordinances. I can tell you the county had a very public meeting on this issue last week on Tuesday to discuss strategically what are our options, what makes the most sense for our community, including those who are experiencing homelessness now. So with all these changes that were happening, the county is the Continuum of Board collaborative applicant back in 2018. At those meetings, and some representatives from jurisdictions here are on that board, including Supervisor Pedroso, Mayor Matt Serrato. During public comment, we were getting comments on what is a COC policy? Is a COC going to take a position on certain things that aren't within their authorities? So based on those questions and being mindful, we don't want to put anyone who's an elected policymaker in a position to take a policy outside of where their board or council might be, to really bring everyone together. And that's where the Homeless Summit idea came to fruition. So on November 19th, we were very deliberate about making sure we invited representatives from all of our local jurisdictions to review some things that have happened. Mayor Serrato.
Let the record reflect that Mayor Serrato's now present.
So on page 2 of your presentation, we actually had 159 folks attend. There hasn't been a homeless summit in Merced County since before the Human Service Agency has acted as a collaborative applicant. Again, we thought this was the perfect time to do so in order to educate the public, as well as an opportunity. These changes are fairly broad in impact when you're speaking about behavioral health or encampment abatement, Supreme Court decisions. They impact every jurisdiction here. So we were very deliberate about making sure we included the relevant sectors as well as jurisdictions. So sectors represented healthcare. There's a huge nexus between housing and healthcare, obviously. In Merced County, fiscal year 23, 22-23, there were $500 million in provider payments for Medi-Cal. $500 million. There's about 150,000 Medi-Cal beneficiaries in Merced County. I've asked the managed care plan about, how many folks account for half of those provider payments? It was 1.6% or 2,400 people. So of 150,000 people, 2,400 people were accounting for about $250 million, which at first I didn't believe until I did the math, and it's about $102,000 per high utilizer. So a huge nexus between healthcare, housing, homelessness, but not only folks experiencing homelessness, other populations of focus such as seniors, people transitioning from long-term care. It's really a presentation upon itself. Those populations of focus, foster youth, people with serious mental illness, substance use disorder, et cetera. We also invited housing developers, service providers, nonprofits. Senator Ana Caballero's office had representatives there, continuum of care membership, law enforcement, educational institution, real estate professionals, and veteran service organizations. In attendance from local jurisdictions, we appreciate the mayor was there. We had a provided video from Supervisor Pedroso, the city manager of Gustine, city manager and police lieutenant from Atwater, as well as Los Banos housing program manager. So good representation from our local jurisdiction. Obviously, county staff was there as well. And then county departments, not only county departments, we have the housing authority there, but human service agency, behavioral health and recovery service, public health, sheriff's office, probation, superior court, county council, and CO's office. I really want to spotlight human service agency and behavioral health. We provide services to residents regardless of jurisdiction, right? That's where we're there, really a poverty fighting for the human service agency, and then some of those secondary conditions such as serious mental illness, substance use disorder that a lot of individuals experiencing homelessness struggle with. So the topics we covered, again, we're trying to be as strategic as possible. We had a presentation from behavioral health, just the transformation of behavioral health, as you all should be aware of. I know they've been very deliberate as well about going out and marketing the changes for the Behavioral Health Services Act, Proposition 1, which was passed. There's a notice of funding availability right now for $2 billion to provide housing for veterans and people with behavioral health challenges. CARE Act, CARE Court, just an array of changes of behavioral health. SB 43, which put substance use disorder as a chronic disability as well. Just these really humongous changes in behavioral health and the transformation. In my opinion, for the last 5 or 6 years, a lot of funding was coming to prevent the poverty side of homelessness. And now there seems to be a greater focus on the behavioral health factors of homelessness. Merced County, 16 to 21% or so are at the federal poverty level. You're talking about 10,000, 15,000 households, but we have 900 individuals. So it's clearly, to me, not just a poverty issue. There's social supports tied into that, as well as the behavioral health issues associated with the individuals. We had a keynote speaker, Dr. Jennifer Jones, someone I've worked with very closely. She was a community enrichment director for behavioral health before starting up her own firm. Dr. Jennifer Jones experienced homelessness. She's lived in shelters to really personalize and humanize who can be, for lack of a better term, afflicted or facing this moment. We also had 3 really good testimonials of folks who've come through the homeless court, maybe the navigation center, through the criminal justice system, ended up getting a job, becoming housed, just showing and spotlighting where this system can work. And we've invested millions of dollars in enhancing the system since 2018, either administratively through HSA, just helping to manage all of these grants, but also we've seen it in facilities that have opened, such as the Navigation Center, providing 76 beds, such as our countywide distributive housing that's located in Los Banos, as well as the city of Merced and the unincorporated area where we have 3 homes. In total, there's 8 homes that were and are being rented now to act as emergency shelter, spread as best we could throughout the county. New direction, outreach and engagement center didn't exist before 2018. Now, clearly, they're a pivotal part in the services and engagement in unsheltered spaces for folks. And in some of the other changes now we're seeing with the CARE Act and CARE Court that's being implemented and started on December 1st. So big changes, huge investments, also including investments made by jurisdictions that some of you all represent. We have home key projects in the city of Merced. We have a 96-unit, 1213 V Street. We have 58 units that will be built along, right behind behavioral health on, I believe that's 15th Street, between 13 and 15 by the 99 overpass. In Los Banos, we've got 55 or so units through the Encampment Resolution Fund. So we're seeing local jurisdictions actually get in the business of providing housing for people who are experiencing homelessness. What's unique about those, it's not affordable housing necessarily, it's housing that's restricted to folks experiencing homelessness. So you could open affordable housing such as we've seen at the retreat apartments on Childs and B Street, but there's still requirements to get in there. You still have to show some type of income to rent. You have to show some kind of, credit score. These units are unique because they're restricted to people experiencing homelessness. You're not just going to sneak in because you're, meeting a area median income. You're also going to have to have been experiencing homelessness. It makes it obviously a lot easier for us to house folks from our emergency shelter system. We talked a little bit about the enhanced care management. It's the biggest transformation that I've seen in my experience providing social services over the last 10 or 15 years. What you're seeing there is the managed care plans are receiving and administering funding in partnership with the community-based organizations. So there's about 30 community-based organizations that have come alongside the managed care plan as enhanced care managers and community support providers. That population of focus, there's something called the housing trio, which is housing navigation services, housing deposit services up to $5,000 per individual. That's once in a lifetime right now, and housing sustaining services and navigation. So identifying, getting into, and then sustaining services are what they call the trio. Recently this week, the federal government just approved a new community support that will go into effect January 1st of next year, won't be implemented locally, called basically rental assistance. They're going to provide 6 months of rental assistance to individuals who qualify through the managed care plan. Obviously, to qualify, you're going to have to be a Medi-Cal beneficiary, and you're going to have some special circumstances. It's not going to be for all 150,000 of the folks that are on Medi-Cal here. So huge changes with the managed care plan, with our behavioral health. We provided that update on the collaborative applicants. Very important that the community understands our limitations. If we have public members coming to the Continuum of Care Board and saying, hey, what's your policy? Let's have a vote on an eviction moratorium. It's very important that the community understands that the collaborative applicant or the Continuum of Care is not, has the authority to enact something like an eviction moratorium. Their job was to promote the end of homelessness. It's to connect folks to the services. It's not necessarily to come out with a policy. It's not that type of authority. So we wanted to level set that with everybody in the community because we have been hearing more and more as these things changes. We had a justice involved segment. So the homeless court graduated over 100 folks, have had over $170,000 worth of fines for individuals who are experiencing homelessness, had been arrested, somewhat loosely connected, I would say, to them experiencing homelessness. So they've been ticketed for camping or, being in an untagged vehicle, whatever those charges are. If those individuals go through some type of service plan, get connected to services, provide some type of community, right? We're in the interest of justice here. You've violated the law. Here's a pathway for you to make it right with the community in general. And then we're going to recognize the fact that, oh, by the way, you don't have a job, you don't have income. These things are somewhat insane and could actually debilitate you from being able to get back into society. We're going to get rid of these. We had a presentation, a legal and policy framework around the Supreme Court and Governor's executive order. Again, it's very important that the community understands what this looks like. I want to have loose talk here. It's not lawful necessarily to camp anywhere in Merced County. You can't just go on a public space, pitch a tent, start a fire, and decide, until that Supreme Court overturned that ruling, that was a protected activity on public space. It was an Eighth Amendment violation. You're criminalizing me for being homeless. Now, I think there's going to be a lot of very smart people looking at that and saying, what does this mean for us now locally? What are we able to do? And of course, our board was very adamant. You're going to lead with humanity. You're going to provide services. You're going to come up with a framework to do that. And then we can start talking about what that'll look like on step 2, step 3. And again, that's why I've spent some time earlier on the array of services we have been able to develop. And then lastly, and maybe most importantly to me, trying to work myself out of a job here. I love the day where they're like, I'm sorry, John, you've done so well, with your team and your community partners. There's just no need for you to come update us every quarter on where we're at on this thing. To me, that really comes down that we have to have housing. We have to have housing to prevent people from losing their housing. We have to have an array of housing for people who are aging. We had a meeting yesterday in regards to the multi-jurisdiction housing element, and my only contribution to that was to identify how our populations are aging. Dos Palos, for example, there's the numbers that I saw based on census, is about 2,200 or so, third of the community that's 60 or over, and it's only gonna increase. So making sure we're mindful as we're developing housing, as we're talking about. And again, I know none of us have crews with hammers and wood, and like that's not our job, you know, that's not our role. But how can we help facilitate those developers, that public-private partnership, to get an array of housing? Nothing irks me more than a tiny home conversation. Like there's the tiny home, you know, what one director might think versus another. That could be an 8-by-8 foot box made out of plastic, and we'll call that a tiny home. And like, or it could be, I've walked into these 750 square feet where I'm like, where do I buy this? Like it's got just a smaller home. I use that as an example because it's going to take an array of housing, not the 8-by-8, that we call that shelter, but of some smaller options for people who are on fixed income, who maybe can't attain a home at current fair market prices in Merced, which is about $398,000, the median home price. Not everyone, a lot of folks cannot afford that. Is there a way to develop smaller homes? For example, I'll call them attainable homes because I stole that from someone I thought was smarter than me. Like, there's just got to be other options versus the market rate option. So we had multiple presentations, and you know, the city of Merced did just an amazing amount of work that they've done in developing affordable housing, securing home key awards. City of Los Banos similarly being able to get the encampment resolution fund for 55 or so units. There's a lot of examples. I mentioned these other jurisdictions because unless we all work together, there's some expertise here. There's some capacity discrepancies amongst all of our jurisdictions. You start talking about housing, now you're talking about access to utilities, services, water, you know, Dos Palos water treatment. Like that's pervasive in almost all of our jurisdictions. So housing was one of the key topics that we wanted to have covered. And primarily, it's not easy to attain, but I think Los Banos has been my favorite example of somebody in a jurisdiction that invested in 2 staff members, a housing manager and an outreach specialist, and have reaped about $15 million worth of rewards. Now that can awards. So that can be like grabbing a tiger by the tail. Right now you got it. What do you do? How do you manage it? What's the development? That's just the first step in facilitating that whole development. Obviously, not everybody in the public, we're very aware of NIMBYism, you know, not in my backyard, but how else are we going to address this challenge? Feedback. Very happy of the respondents. We had 50 respondents of their overall satisfaction. 36 or 72% were as highly satisfied as we could have done. We didn't have a 6, they all picked 5. But about 46 out of 50 were 4 or 5. Reason for attending. So some of these things, you know, to us, there's a desire to have more information. 86%, 44 of the respondents said just learning. I mean, that's a big indicator. Maybe we can do better to keep people as informed as possible on what these changes look like. Another opportunity was networking. 61% or 31 respondents said better networking opportunities. We definitely can do better than that. This one was a little scary. It was our first one. I hope people show up. Oh my God, everyone's showing up. Okay, now what? And you look around the room and you're like, man, I wish that guy could talk to this gal. Or, you know, I'm like, there's a networking opportunity that we didn't take advantage of this first time, but we will be focused on that the next time. And then lastly, the agenda topics. 41% came because of the agenda topics: housing, behavioral health transformation, CalAIM transformation, et cetera. Some other feedback that we wanted to highlight, they were the number of responses, they were very happy with the detailed information shared. So yes, it was designed to be informative and not necessarily a networking event. So it was built around, you know, at least for what our purpose was, based on the fact that people were pleased with the detailed responses. Presenters and presentations received 13 responses. testimonials, which are very powerful. And all of this, the presentations, the testimonials, they're all on the Merced COC website. I think I may have glossed over it because it was at the bottom of the last page. 100% of respondents said they would attend again. Can't do any better than 100%. The team did a really good job, and we're happy to see that, hey, maybe not all of us gave you a 5 of 5, but all of us would come back. Some ideas around future topics, again, very reinforcing to our approach over the last 5 or 6 years. What collaboration across organizations can we facilitate? That's a future topic that folks want to see. What type of collaboration is there? Nobody, I very clumsily at the Board of Supervisors learned never invoke another department, but I was trying to do an example of an individual in one of our jurisdictions is very difficult to serve. It's not like a pothole where you just call your public works. Don't ever say that publicly because it's not very helpful and it's not very sensitive sounding, but it's true. There's a person in your jurisdiction, that person could need behavioral health services, employment services, housing services. They might need law enforcement. There's just an array of things that folks may need that how do we even start to assess what that is and then connect them to that. And that, my fervent hope is that that's what the enhanced care management, the very first action would be, hey, you need some support. Let me connect you to this individual who can sign you up if you're a Medi-Cal beneficiary. Clearly, you're experiencing homelessness to navigate this complex web of services. I've seen that personally. I got a phone call from the managed care plan. They had an individual, he was disabled, receiving Social Security disability. He had an 80-year-old mother who was incontinent. They were both living in a car. He had been to our county adult protective services. He'd been to Sierra Saving Grace, which is a community-based organization. He had been to Los Banos Housing Department. He had been connected through the managed care plan to an enhanced care management provider. He had been to New Direction Outreach and Engagement Center, and he still was sitting in his car with his 80-year-old incontinent mother. For me, it's really easy because I have a good Rolodex at this point in my life, and I was able to connect him to a better enhanced care manager, a better service provider, and never heard from them again. I don't know, I can't sit here and say, man, I did a great job. I'm sure they're housed now, but that's how complicated this is. You can have 5 entry points and still be living in your car, and that's where we have to perform for y'all. We have to be able, if someone reaches their hand out and says, I want help, we have to perform. Because there's going to be a stubborn percentage of folks who say, I'm not interested in your services. We can't really look at those folks too harshly if we can't even help the folks who have their hands out. So that's got to be our commitment to all of you. By all of you, I mean the whole community. We have to do better. We're not going to be perfect, but we're going to be earnest in our efforts. So for me to see that the collaboration across organizations, there is no success in this endeavor without that collaboration. That's kind of it in a nutshell. It was an opportunity, I think, to kind of level set with the community, to level set with some of our elected policymakers, to kind of recognize we're in an area of transformation that I've yet to see in the 6 or 7 years I've worked on this, which is also, it's an opportunity. We can take advantage of this opportunity to manage our public spaces better. I think that will please some of our constituents, and also connect people to services which are highly enriched at this point. The state of California, no matter where you fall on that political spectrum, has invested mightily in transforming our healthcare sector through CalAIM, our behavioral health sector through Proposition 1, and our housing through HomeKey, billions of dollars in investment. We've done a good job taking advantage of it locally. We're going to have to pivot yet again with the new landscape. And with that kind of concludes the presentation and open it up for questions.
John, thank you. And before I open it up for questions, I just want to make a comment, is that you all can see how lucky we are to have John as being a member of our team. His passion, and he's just his approach and looking at this complicated issue and calling out what needs to be called out and taking ownership of the things we can do better. And so I want to thank you for that presentation. I have one question, do you know the percentage of unhoused that qualify for government assistance?
Yeah, no, it's going to be very high. So for Medi-Cal, for example, our managed care plan said
the percentage of our unhoused that qualify for some type of government assistance.
Yep. So from the managed care plan perspective is probably the best information I have. It was 80%. They said 80% of people who are experiencing homelessness are going to be eligible for Medi-Cal. My next question was, well, what's up with the other 20%? Some of it was really about engagement. They may be eligible, just aren't enrolled. They may be from a different county. Maybe they're rich and just aren't eligible. Like, it's a pretty diverse group out there. Maybe they're connected to Veteran Services and the VA. So at least 80% for Medi-Cal. If you're eligible for Medi-Cal, you're likely going to be eligible for CalFresh and food stamps, et cetera. And then obviously, if you're eligible for Medi-Cal, the behavioral health services as well. It's a high percentage.
Right, any other questions for John, Mayor?
John, with the with the effective date of Prop 36 was yesterday. With that, do you know what and then now that's going to shift a lot of this back into the courts and the justice system in terms of treatment, enforcing treatment. Do you know what, in order to meet that potential demand, because this in a lot of ways strikes, not nibbling it around the edges, this is potentially is a lot of people. Do you know, how the HSA, you're not BHRS obviously, but what's the plan to address that treatment need?
So I don't, other than it's there, statutorily mandated, right? These are services we're obligated to provide. I know behavioral health has applied for some outpatient treatment funding for youth and justice involved as well. Justice involved, I believe, may in this definition mean people discharging from institutions. I brought that up today. We had a meeting with county council. What does this look like? What's Prop 36? Is any ordinance that we amend to start identifying criminal behavior, is that going to fall under Prop 36? I think there's always capacity issues with a lot of our government programs, but there's also, if you're eligible for CalFresh, you're coming in, you're getting CalFresh, and if it's an immediate need, you're going to get it in 24 hours. But I don't know what the demand signal is yet. So for me, I've been bringing that up as part of the encampment ordinance. This is a cultural shift or a pendulum shift back to some enforcement.
It'll be interesting because it'll likely just kind of think I'm hearing anecdotally. I mean, it could change police behavior and police enforcement patterns as well, because the simple drug possession cases are now, the third one's what's called a treatment mandated felony. And there's value in that. And so there's just anecdotally hearing from some officers, like there's more of an emphasis, whereas that sort of enforcement was de-emphasized with the passage of Prop 47, and now renewed emphasis on. So it's hard to say. It's just, there could be a big unknown, and there could be more.
Yes, and I've tried to make my career consistent against creating work for other departments. They don't appreciate that, but to your point, that's work that's coming down the pipe. I think we have to be conscious of what that's going to look like, and also from board direction, lead with services. That's part of it. Making sure, like, if you are habitually doing something that we know is more than just antisocial, that's criminal behavior, that for the last 6 years we've just turned a blind eye to. One good example, Prop 47 passed in 2014, 50% increase in homelessness since the passage. I can't say that's a causation or a correlation, but boy, it sure is suspicious. Sure suspicious, right? Decompressing prisons during COVID, another potential impact when 19% of people discharging from institutions don't have a housing plan. So all of these things are shifting now. I think that's where I would frame this more as an opportunity. How are we going to, but I appreciate you bringing that up, because I'm very consistent in all, we're not just talking about camping ordinance, we're talking about a monumental shift. That's just at the state governor's level, but also you got the federal level. I was on a call yesterday with the Continuum of Care Consortium for the state, and the first 15 minutes was, oh my God, they just appointed this guy or nominated this guy to be the head of HUD. His 4 priorities are law enforcement and making sure people who are undocumented don't get access to services. And there's a lot of consternation there. But this is the most aligned I've seen the federal and state in regards to this issue, where even the governor of the state of California is like, we got to do something. And then the taxpayers or the voters of California, 69% said, and we're done. And this was only 2 years ago. Prop 20 was on the ballot, and it failed. 2 years later, 69% of folks are like, no, we need enforcement. And then last, somewhat anecdotally, but not, San Diego County, their drug treatment court went from 600 graduates in 2014 to about 200 in 2021, 2022, somewhere around those timeframes. Please don't hold me to it. There's a direct link to that. Like, maybe we're not charging people for this, so but that, you're not giving them the opportunity to, hey, go to jail or go to treatment.
It did the same thing to our drug courts here. It gutted the drug courts in Merced County. AB 109.
My hope and some of the direction that we have received is that we'll have a regional convening where we're bringing folks together to talk about that. The district attorney, the sheriff, local law enforcement, these are huge public defender caseloads, superior court caseloads. There's going to have to be some common understanding of what we're going to do strategically in Merced County.
Questions? Supervisor Pedroza?
I don't really have a question, just more of a comment. I'm piggybacking on what Supervisor Silvera said. So I do know that, you know, a couple of weeks ago when we discussed our ordinance, there was a lot of things that were brought up, and I think John is spot on when it comes to some of this stuff. And so to echo what Scott said, you know, he's really good, but the other thing too is I encourage anybody that has questions to ask him, because one of the things that some of us don't necessarily like to do all the time is he makes you think, because he'll make you think about different things that you haven't thought about in different ways because of it. So I would encourage anybody to get together with him to ask those questions. So thank you very much.
So thank you.
Thank you. Right, thank you.
Director McDaniel,
Present.
Director Samra, Director Nagy,
Here.
Director Nelson,
Here.
Director Pereira,
Present.
Director Pedroso,
Here.
Director Amabile, Vice Chair Silvera.
Present. All right. Do we have someone that wants to do the invocation? Or Director Pereira? Be with-
Michelle, did you hear that? Do you want to do an invocation?
Yes.
Perfect.
Is this here?
Yeah.
Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for this gathering, Lord. We thank you for this time. And we ask you to bless and protect all of these governing leaders, Father, as they make these very important decisions. Lord, bless all of us here on the holidays and our families, Lord, and we thank you. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen.
She's on KAMB radio.
Oh.
Director McDaniel, will lead us in the pledge.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the greatest country on this earth. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for the prayer, and thank you, Director McDaniel, for leading us in the pledge. All right. Item number 5 is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve?
Motion by Director McDaniel, a second by Director Pedroso. I don't think, do we have to ask public comment on this one? Anybody of the public would like to speak on this item? Not seeing anyone? Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion carries unanimously. Moving right along to item number 6 is public comment. Public comment is available in advance of or during the meeting. See instructions for public comment on page 2 of the agenda packet. And at this time, I would encourage anybody from the public to speak on any item
Not on the agenda.
not on the agenda that is within this board's jurisdiction. You're gonna have a spot here in a second.
Okay.
All right, not seeing anyone, we will close the public comment period, and we will move right along to item number 7 is reports and presentations. And first item is recognition of outgoing directors.
You wanna maybe go in
I
front,
can go right.
right in front?
I'll invite you up, Director Espinoza. Second time I get to give this, you were here last time, so on behalf of myself and my directors, we want to thank you for your many years of service to MCAG and to the citizens of Merced County. And so there you go. Congratulations, sir.
You taking the picture? Michael's gotta be fast.
Go, Michael.
Here he is. Oh, he wanted to make an entrance.
one in the chair.
And I'll give you a few minutes to say a few words, sir.
Gomez?
No,
I said,
Sue?
Well, first of all, I want to thank, all the directors. I know, I think I started in 2010, for 14 years. I was a senior. I told Darren I was gonna pass the baton. He's the next senior up in line. So, but it's been a pleasure to working with all you. We learned a lot, and I also want to thank Stacy and all your staff for being wonderful. You know, just Merced County has great employees, but I know you guys do too as well. So, you know, we share a lot of, we work together, so I think it's been an awesome experience working here, and, thank you for all the support, and, you know, I can say less, I'll be over at the education, side, so I'll still be here, around here, you know, harassing you guys, so. It's been an honor, so, you know, I couldn't do both seats, but, you know, I didn't want to do Livingston anyway, so.
The elections did you win this go round, like 4 or something?
well, and Supervisor Espinoza so graciously shared his personal email address with us so that we still want to stay in contact, so we really appreciate that.
Thank you. Send me, you know, if they have it, if pass it along, if you guys need anything, I'm here, so, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and thank you, and I'll see you around, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just say that I'm sure we have some committees that we can, that we have. Citizens advisory, oversight, we'll send you all the options.
I want less meetings, because I want to do more private side.
Oh, okay.
Perfect.
They want to appoint me to a city clerk, and so I was like, oh, no, please. You know what, appreciate the cause, but, like I said, I just want to focus on work now, so. Thank you again.
Thank
Thank you, Rod, appreciate you.
No, Rod, you have to stay for the whole meeting.
Yeah,
we should.
Back with Caltrans, so we still got projects that we.
End of the meeting.
All right, moving right along to item 7B is the Caltrans District 10 report.
Good afternoon, everyone. I did send my PowerPoint at 1 PM, but maybe I can go over a quick one, and I'll be just going over my projects I covered last time. So, do you have the PowerPoint now? Is there a way I can connect my laptop? No? Oh, to Elizabeth and to the last person I sent last time, so.
It probably Stephanie, I don't have it.
Oh, sorry, I should have checked, so. Let's see what that.
Try to send it the day before, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, lesson learned, thanks.
Or if you have it in your sent folder, you can send it now.
So I have it here, but
Oh.
it doesn't think it's a way I can connect.
I'm asking.
Marissa. Bravo. Oh, no?
I'll tell you, in the interest of time, because I think we want to have that, I'm gonna just use the chair's discretion and just maybe we can move on to some of these informational items, and as soon as they get it pulled up, we'll bring you back in. Is that good?
That's perfect.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, we will move along, then we will move to item 8. These are informational items. These items are included for information purposes. No presentations will be made by staff unless a board member has questions. So we have items 8A, B, and C with plenty of other ones in there. Would any member of the governing board like to pull one of those items for discussion? Not seeing anyone. Would members of the public like to comment on any of those items? Not seeing anyone. We'll move on to item number 9. Item number 9 is the consent calendar. All consent calendar items listed below may be acted upon with one vote unless specifically removed for separate consideration by a member of the board, a member of staff, or a member of the public. We have items 9A, 9B, and 9C. Would any member of the board like to pull one of those items?
I'll move to approve if there's no other comments.
Ask the public if they wanna, any member of the public would like to pull one of those items for discussion? Not seeing anybody. I have a motion by, Director McDaniel and a second by? Second by Director Pedroso. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed. The motion carries unanimously.
You might be.
All right,
10A.
10A,
No, sorry.
for action items, how close are we? All right, Michael?
Not in there yet, we're waiting.
Okay. presentation?
It's, I think we're the public. It shouldn't be long.
All right, perfect. Then we are going to move right into item 10, action items for the Merced County Association of Governments. Action item 10A is to adopt the programming recommendations for the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program, CMAQ,
It's gonna be Elizabeth.
and we're going to have Elizabeth. Elizabeth queued up and ready?
Is Elizabeth there? Yeah. She's up.
Otherwise, I'll cover it. 3, 2, 1. I see her reflection. Okay. This item is the request that the board, support or, oh, there she is. Come on in. We're on the CMAQ item. We took some things out of order.
Okay, we've got a little crowd out there, you guys probably saw. We'll see. No, just kidding. Good afternoon, everyone. Elizabeth Forte, Director of Planning and Programming. So this item is regarding the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program. A lot of you are very familiar with it, but for those that aren't, since our area is not compliant with air quality requirements, we receive these federal funds to implement air quality improving projects. And the region receives about $4 million a year. So we released a call for projects to all of our member agencies earlier this year, and we have about $8.5 million available to program new projects to. We received 11 applications, and we have a scoring committee and adopted scoring criteria that this board adopted. And on page 132, there is a list of the 11 projects that we received. It's recommended that the 8 in that first table are approved for programming with the $8.5 million that we have available now. It's also recommended, and we haven't necessarily done this before, but from my perspective, I'm recommending that the other 3 projects that were submitted remain on kind of a waiting list. We often have additional funds that become available. We also have prior year carryover that we can apply to projects. So if additional funding comes available, I'm asking that we can pull those projects from the waiting list. And that would be kind of an existing waiting list until we do our next call for projects in about 2 years. Let's see, I think that's all I have on that item. As I kind of mentioned, we do expect there to be some funds moving forward. If everyone can move their projects, we can advance and get more, or if anyone is maybe behind, we can move them around and move projects up. So I'm happy to take any questions on these.
Elizabeth, can you just speak really briefly about how the projects are scored? Or like how the selection process works?
Yeah, so firstly, this board reviews our application criteria and scoring. And that happened earlier, I think in the fall. And the scoring criteria includes a number of factors. So it's federally required that we adopt a scoring criteria and that all of these projects are reviewed with that criteria competitively. So we don't, give formula allocations to, by population or anything like that. It's all per the scoring guidance. And we have, 6 factors. Cost effectiveness of the air quality reductions, that's technically the most important in this program. So how much are we spending for the reductions that we're getting? Vehicle miles traveled reduction, the benefits to disadvantaged communities, project readiness, so deliverability. We don't necessarily want to fund a project that won't be ready for a few years. It should wait to the next call for projects. Safety is another of our criteria. And then there's also a subjective criteria directing the scorers to look at accessibility, quality of life, economic activity, and other subjective criteria. Each agency has a scorer, and Caltrans as well. So the agencies, it's usually in the Public Works Department that reviews and scores them. And MCAG also has one score, and we average them, and that's what you're seeing in the staff report.
Right. Director Pedrosa.
Yeah, My question is, can you remind me, so when you do a call for projects, you send it out to the staff, the respective staff in the department, right? But we don't see the project, they just come to us, they go to them.
The call for projects or the,
So when the projects come in, I don't remember seeing.
right, the project applications that were submitted? So all of your agencies at this point should have seen from your agency what was submitted,
Yeah.
because they did go, it was a requirement of ours that they go to the councils and the board to be submitted here, and we've received all of those resolutions.
Oh.
And then they go to the scoring committee, and then they're presented here. Is that what you're kind of looking at? Yeah.
Director Pereira?
Yeah, there's, one project on here is, a Winton Way sidewalks, and I know what, I just want to kind of tee it up a little bit. A couple years ago, a student came to our MAC meeting in Winton, and there's a tremendous amount of students that walk from Winton to Atwater High School, and there's no sidewalks on the majority of it. And so my suggestion was that you go back, get a petition going. And so that's here, I don't know if you all have it, but if you'll notice that, it's all students, because that was my request. If you're gonna come with a request, it needs to be those who are gonna benefit from it that want it. And so, anyway, so during public comment, you're gonna hear from Zira, the student, and possibly the MAC chair. And anyways, and then just one other, in the scoring of the I don't know if I want to bring people's attention to this, but I know you all study, and so the cost per pound of emissions that are reduced is high. However, I also serve on the Air District Board, and I can tell you that when that these numbers come off of the average projects, but when we do projects like this where people are already walking there, right? It's you're not creating a walking place where people may go. If people are already walking, that the number of people that walk after you do the project increases by double. So the cost effectiveness of people who aren't going to be driving and dropping their kids off, parents will be willing to let their kids walk because now they have a safe space. So the cost effectiveness, I would say, would be at least halved, if not three-quartered. So anyways, just to let you know, because I know y'all know numbers and y'all pay attention to the numbers. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from Elizabeth?
That one right here.
Oh, Director Nagy?
Yeah, I had I don't know if it's really a question, but, on the allocation, the vast majority is going to east side projects. And I wonder how, because the county took over the project that Los Banos dropped the ball on for the pathway out to the college in Los Banos. Since Los Banos doesn't have any interest in doing that anymore, how would that project get nominated when you have a call for projects?
The county.
It would be the county. So why wasn't there a call for projects for that project? Why wasn't that project put into the queue?
I can answer that.
Sure.
Because the Measure V money isn't gonna
No,
pay for
I think it is because it's not ready. One of the criteria Elizabeth said is you got a 4-year funding cycle, and that rate's in there, and your scoring is, that project is still, because it may have got put on the back burner by the city and the county took it over, it's not far enough down the road that we could be requesting money because we don't even have a preferred path yet.
Right,
So I think
right.
that's probably, but it would be the
Well,
county
that's
that would
gonna be a
submit it.
very long project it's gonna take a lot more than just what we have allocated for here, but, okay, thank you.
Any other comments? All right. I will open up the public for comments.
15,000 people.
I'll just warn you, the top of the dial rolls because it opens, so if it feels like it's tipping over, it's just rolling.
Okay, thank you. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Michelle Uribe, and I am, yep, I see it. My name is Michelle Uribe, and I'm a member of the Winton community, the chairperson for the Winton MAC, and I work at Atwater High. I'm part of the campus safety team. I've been with with the Merced County High School District for 20 years, but we're here at Atwater High for 16, and I'm also an Atwater High graduate. And so when Zira Zyra, I'm sorry. I always practice saying her name. Anyway, she wrote a letter to the MAC board, and I was just so proud of her. This is a topic that has come up quite a bit in our MAC meetings. It just seems kind of almost like impossible, like it's just something that may never happen. And so I'm so proud of her because since she's brought up this topic again, it's just been taking momentum. And so I am so proud of her. In a matter of days, she'll tell you the details, but it was right before a break, one of our breaks, and they were able to collect hundreds of signatures from students and staff, just that knew how important this was. I actually drive just a short distance from Gertrude to the high school, which is, I don't know, a mile, just a short distance, and I see students every morning walking, but there's these two little boys, not that they walk to school every morning, and then I pass this gentleman here, he wears a safety vest, but these two little boys, they walk every morning. Now this is at 7 in the morning, and it's still dark and foggy and whatever it is, and so it was this morning, thankfully I got them both in the same picture, I got them all three in the same picture, but, and so anyway, I wanted to bring that up, but I just want to say how proud I am of these young ladies, and Jocelyn and Cyrus, and I'm gonna let them speak, and thank you for your consideration for this. This means a lot to our school. I know Principal Parley wanted to be here, and other members, of our campus, and but we're the ones representing today, and we thank you so much for your consideration.
Good afternoon. My name is Saida Ochoa, and I'm here to address the issue. So I am a former student from Atwater High School, and I've walked the Winton Way, street, because there's not much of a sidewalk, and there's been like glass, there's cars that are like coming towards it. It's a little bit scary, because they don't see where you're able to walk. So I just brought this attention to, the Winton Municipal Advisory Council, and this has brought me to Lloyd to make a petition, and we got around 700 signatures, I think, from the school, and it's from students and staff. And so I'm just here to convince you guys to make a sidewalk for this, because it's very important for the students, for the safety of the students. Thank you.
Okay, sure you don't want to get up? Supervisor Pereira might need one more person to convince him.
Yeah.
Opportunity.
Good call, Supervisor.
You've come this far.
Political debut here.
I don't have much to say, but I do know what I kind of want to say. And as a current student there, I don't walk there anymore, but I used to walk there. And while walking there, I was kind of shocked that people would do that. It was like my first year, but they have lots of garbage and debris and sometimes roadkill. And I remember just being like shocked that there was a random couch there. That was very peculiar for me. But I had 0 periods, so I had to get there early. And it's because of Zyra that I was able to get to school without doing that way, because I didn't like it. And it freaked me out how cars were super close and it was dark, especially during winter. So I think a sidewalk would be very beneficial, because Zyra graduated, so I had to get my own license to drive there, and cars contribute to pollution or something. So I think making it safe to walk is very important. That way kids can walk freely and safely without the fear of cars right next to them or random like glass and car parts just getting in their way while they're walking. So yeah, that's it.
Perfect, thank you, great job.
Good job.
I think you convinced them.
Yeah.
All right, is there any other public comment on this item? All right, we'll bring it back to the board. Chair will entertain a motion. Question, I'm sorry.
So, on this item here, Winton Way sidewalks, this is specifically what we're talking about, from the canal to Gertrude. The side, high school side of Winton.
Yeah, it actually is a little bigger project than that. It's both sides.
Curb gutter sidewalk.
Yeah, but on both sides.
Oh, both sides.
Any other comments by the board?
Right.
Director Pedrosa.
I think the couch is there, it's for long walks.
Yeah.
If there's nothing else, I'll make the motion.
Right, we have a motion by Director, Pedrosa, a second by Director Pereira.
Well, Nagy was first,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Either way,
as long as it passes.
All right,
it says baby.
any other comments?
Maybe.
If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Voted, I wasn't.
I know. So you convinced her, she's not even get to
I don't
vote.
even have a vote, and I
Right.
voted.
The motion
yes.
carries unanimously. Are we ready?
Up, girls.
Great job.
Great job.
Okay,
Great job.
we're gonna move from the, item 10, and now we're gonna go back to the Caltrans report.
Deja vu.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Anand Kapoor from Caltrans Project Management. Today I'll be going over Executive Steering Committee package, which we send out, and we'll be going over key projects that I discussed last time, but we will be only covering projects where there are any changes. And then I'll go over two action items I had from last meeting, and then open for any question and answers. So the first one is we have this package where we send out where it shows how many projects are in the feasibility stage. We have 8 projects. Here's the list, and the next one is the projects in environmental phase. So we can move to there's a list of projects, and then a map showing the next slide, please. Yeah, the map showing how many projects are in the environmental phase, and this is all in Merced County. And the next one was to show how many projects in the PSE phase we saw, and there's a list, different categories, local, top, minor, state projects.
Next month.
The next year, yeah. And then we go to project, these projects in construction, so you can see how many current projects in construction, where they are, and what type of funding they have. This is the package we share every time, which can tell you what's the status of those projects. And so here's the list. So I'll start with the Planada intersection improvement project, where we were proposing the roundabout. The only update to that one is that we have one parcel that will be going to CTC for condemnation, and we have acquired 2. Please, next slide. And we have acquired 2 parcels, and one parcel we hope we'll reach agreement soon. So that's the only update which is highlighted since my previous report. And next one is our 59 pavement anchor project. In this one, the project report is approved. So we finish our environmental phase, and we will start our design phase in January. So that's the change. Next is our 4-lane widening project. And this one is, the FED was approved, and the project report will be signed soon. So we will finish our environmental phase, and we are working on design and right-of-way co-op, and we'll start those pretty soon. That's the progress. And Merced pavement anchor project. In this one, next page. Yeah, in this one, we talked about what's feasible, what's not feasible. So team discussed the sidewalk, and because of the high speed, 45 miles per hour, we cannot have a sidewalk there. So that's what the team finally decided. We are going forward with the flashing beacon, solar power flashing beacon, and we are addressing the flooding issues. So, but that's the one.
Del Nido Road.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what scope we are adding to this project while we are waiting for the permit. And Gerard Avenue intersection improvement, this one where we are proposing these items. Next slide, please. Here, again, we are going to CTC for one parcel. and we are negotiating with owners of 4 parcels, and we have only acquired 1 so far. So that's the update on the critical path for this project.
You guys have any luck with getting PG&E to move any faster than the rest of us?
I think they're slower for us. And we are helping them undergrounding their cables up in the mountains, and they want to move fast, and we are helping them move fast. And so we are taking our staff away from our projects and trying to help them, so it doesn't work both ways. And Merced, the 30 curb ramp sidewalk project, that one is 80% complete, and there's the answer for PG&E. We are waiting for PG&E to start.
Could you go back 1 slide?
Yeah, please.
I've sent this up the food chain several times.
Uh-huh.
There's a bridge right here that crosses this canal, and the deck of that bridge has potholes that are literally 8 inches deep, wide. And I was in Gustine a week ago, and it hadn't been addressed yet. So hopefully in this, somebody's gonna
Yes.
take care of that.
Okay. I think I discussed that last time. We have our maintenance projects, trying to add that into their project.
Oh, okay.
We are working on maintenance, field maintenance is working on it. For us to do a major project, it takes time. The field maintenance is addressing it right now, so they're working on it. Thank you. And this was brought up, last time, debris cleanup at bridges. This is one of the action items. And in this field maintenance, I contacted them. They said they can clean up debris, where it collects near the bridges. And especially they wait for some time for the water level to go down, because they don't have permit to enter the water, but they can clean from outside. So, yeah, that was it. And the next one is, Green Sun Arrow at B Street. And that's pending. We are looking into it, traffic people.
I think the V, and 140, I think everyone on this board has brought that intersection. I saw you look, it's like, who brought that up?
Yeah,
They did.
Yeah.
Everybody.
It is. So that'll be the flashing, green arrow was requested, so we will be looking into that. So I've asked the team to look into that one, so they're looking for that. That's it from my side.
Okay. Thank you for those updates. Are there any questions or comments?
In regards to the homeless that are underneath, like, your bridges, so for example, like the Child's in 99, is that your responsibility? It says state property. So, I mean, I think that.
Homelessness under our bridges.
Yes,
we
do have contract work, to address that. It's usually done in cycles.
Because it's getting bad, again, at, Child and 99.
Encampment.
Any other questions, comments? I have a few for you. So, one that just got brought to my attention, the center divide on Highway 152 and Volta Road. The turn lane's good, but the actual part where you're in that center divide, the road is very rough in there. I mean, now that we're through tomato season, I can tell you there's piles of trucks that drive through there during the season, but
152 in Volta.
152 in Volta. I know that you guys are studying for a roundabout and all that, but
Yeah.
and the little bit of center divide that's right there is in just terrible disrepair.
Okay, well, I can ask.
Okay, and then the other one that I want to discuss with you is, it's westbound Highway 152 on the north side, just east of Turner Island Road. You have the Orchid Barn that sits there, and if you look at it from an aerial, the eastbound lane, it's not much of a curve there, but on that westbound lane, it makes a nice sweep over, and there is no like warning that it's coming. And I just happened to be out there at the Orchid Barn yesterday. They've had to replace their sign out there numerous times because people either fall asleep, aren't paying attention, and if you're sitting right in front of their sign and you're looking due east, you're looking into the fast lane of Highway 152, because that's where the road kind of curves over. And so what they had asked is there anything that could be done to warn drivers of that curve? It's not such a severe curve that you would see, you know, if you're going down a highway, it says, hey, you need to go 35 to make this hard. It's a gradual curve, but not knowing there. And the reason they brought it up is they had one where it came off, it missed the sign, but ended up in their driveway. And by the time it stopped, it went into one of their greenhouses and caused $300,000 worth of damage. And, you know, and what he told me is 90% of the time the drivers are insured. The other 10% of the time are not insured. And, you know, and ultimately what he's concerned about is that somebody's going to end up getting killed there, let alone what it does to their business and all that. So if we could at least look into that, is there something that Caltrans could do to warn drivers that there's that curve coming there? And potentially, I don't know, I'll leave that up to the experts on what that looks like. But that was brought to my attention, and I told them I would bring it to your attention. Oh, and the other piece is the transformer that comes into their property. So it's like you got the pole here and it goes in the ground, and the main transformer sits right here. So like their sign is here, they have this driveway, and their transformer is here. If a car ends up going through that transformer,
It'll be fireworks.
it's catastrophic for their business, potentially life-threatening to the person who lives there. So I just want to make sure you guys are aware of that, and maybe if we could at least look into see what could be done.
Yeah, definitely. We will look into, I'll ask our traffic ops, traffic safety to look into it.
Perfect, appreciate it. All right, any other questions, comments? Anybody from the public? All right, thank you for being here, sir. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Thank you.
See you next year.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, moving back to our regular agenda, we're moving on to item 10B, establish the Regional Transportation Plan Roundtable for Development of the 2026 Regional Transportation Plan Sustainable Community Strategy. And we will go to Elizabeth again.
All right. Okay, getting resituated. This item, as our chair suggested, is for the establishment of a regional transportation plan roundtable. So our regional transportation plan, I think most are very familiar, especially those that are getting bored during the item. Sorry. Very familiar with our regional transportation plan, but we prepare it every 4 years. The last one was adopted in 2022, and we are gearing up for our 2026 version of our regional transportation plan. You've actually seen a lot these last few meetings and today of our gearing up for the plan. You guys have heard about our regional demographic forecast, which will be part of this regional transportation plan. We've been working on updating our transportation model. We have an environmental impact report that will be kicking off. There's a number of items to kick off this plan. And so I did note in the staff report that we will definitely be talking about it a lot for the next year and a half and going into detail about what it entails and what the process is, especially because we do have some that are brand new to it. Essentially, we're looking at a number of things. We'll start off by kind of reviewing, reaffirming goals, like what are the transportation goals and objectives in the region. That's one of the things we want this roundtable to kind of buy in on right at the beginning. We'll look at what we have available in funding, and we'll create project lists. And there are a number of other, components with the regional transportation plan, such as air quality requirements, et cetera. So as I mentioned, one of the first things we want to do is get a robust stakeholder group from the county to start in the development of the regional transportation plan. First, we would probably look at, goals and objectives. So this is a federally required document. We have very hefty outreach requirements, and we also have a public participation plan where we commit to the types of outreach we're going to have. So on page 136 is a proposed roster of positions for our roundtable. It shows 36 members. It looks pretty large, but actually in 2022, the majority of these persons did participate actively in the process. And so that's where most of these names come from, and agencies is from prior participation. And then also, we're recommending 3 at-large committee members for someone who may not be recommended on this very specific list. So that was a little bit long, but there's a lot to our regional transportation plan. And like I mentioned, we'll talk about it later, but we want to kick off so that we can get invitations out and hopefully have the first meeting of this committee in February.
Questions, comments by the board? What if we don't like one of the names on that list? Can we recommend a different one?
I don't see why not. You're in charge. So this is our proposed roster. So.
Just,
An clarification, the representative that we're identifying for the category or
Yeah.
the category?
no, I'm good with the I don't like some of the categories, but I know that we gotta have those, but, particular ones on there that I don't think are very helpful. But we could probably have an offline conversation about those.
I would encourage if board members have alternative options, because the other potential is that some of the representatives that we have may elect to not participate. So if you have suggestions for the categories, we are absolutely open to those. So we can talk about that offline, unless someone has ideas now.
Just, if I may.
Director Pereira?
Yeah, I think a good point of having 3 at-large community members. Would like to suggest maybe that we get some folks from the outlying areas that have highways running through them as potential members. Maybe somebody from, I don't know, Hilmar, Justine, Dos Palos, Planada, Snelling. Just some of the outlying areas that might bring something to the table that we don't know about.
Director Pedrosa?
I would also like to add, the California, or the Alliance for Health.
Oh, yeah.
Are they a CBO? Good. Right. Are there any comments by members of the public? Not literally seeing anybody from the public in here? Oh, you are?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
One name I would like to say that sticks out to me, Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. I know a couple of the folks in that organization. I like the work that they do, and if they stay in here, I think that'd be nice.
any other comments? This is an action item. Bring it back to the board. Chair will entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Director Pedrosa. Is there a second?
Dorado, second.
Second by Director Dorado. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Excuse me, the motion carries unanimously. Moving right along to item 10C, approve the final regional growth forecast.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, directors. You may remember last month we presented you with the draft regional growth forecast through the year 2050. Our consultant, Beth Giraz, gave us an interesting presentation. We had good discussion. Just a refresher that we update our regional growth forecast every 4 years, and then the results are used as inputs to our regional travel demand model. And our travel demand model is used to inform various planning activities, such as the Regional Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategy, which will be kicking off early next year, as well as corridor studies and then VMT analysis under CEQA. Local jurisdictions provided us with a development pipeline and general plan information that was used to inform the regional growth forecast. And then we also sent around a preliminary draft for jurisdictions to review back in early October. There's a few modifications that have been made to the growth forecast since it was presented to you last month. And our consultant, Beth, is with us again here today just to briefly go over the changes to the forecast as well as the final results. And if you refer to the staff report beginning on page 145 of the staff report, there's a summary of the results by jurisdiction. And then there's a final report that's included as an attachment to the staff report. And today we're asking the governing board to approve the final forecast. And then next steps would be to integrate the forecast into our travel demand model early next year. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Beth, and then we can answer any questions you might have afterwards.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me from in the room?
Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Just wanted to make sure before we get too far. Next slide, please.
What?
So never a dull day with technology. So Meg gave you a great overview of the background and purpose of the forecast. I won't belabor that just to say that we're producing a forecast of growth in population, housing, jobs, and the demographic and socioeconomic characteristics across the region and out to 2050. This is, of course, a key input to the regional plan. Our base year is officially 2020, but we've incorporated data through January of 2024 wherever we can. And then the horizon year for the forecast goes to 2050. Next slide, please. There are a couple of updates since November. After the November meeting, we received some additional input from Atwater on entitled projects and potential annexation area. After evaluating those inputs, we, as a sort of professional expertise and with staff, decided that there was no change needed to the regional forecast that you all saw in November, but there was a need to make some minor adjustments to the sub-regional allocation. And that was moving about 400 housing units from the unincorporated area to Atwater. There is no difference in housing units across the other cities. Moving about 1,000 population from the unincorporated area to Atwater. There are minor differences ranging from -5 to +21 in other cities. Really, this is just the model trying to make all of the numbers balance out with average household size and things. And then there were about 60 jobs that were shifted from the unincorporated area to Atwater. And this was presented at the technical review board meeting and received their feedback as well. Next slide, please. So key trends in the forecast, just to keep in mind, the highlights from last meeting are declining births, stalled life expectancy, low levels of net migration, an aging population and fewer children, and that jobs and housing will grow faster than population, and that's in part because an aging population needs more housing. Older people are more likely to live alone. And jobs will continue to grow at least over the period of this forecast because where the population slowdown is coming from is fewer children, and most 8 and 9-year-olds, they might have a job helping you set the table, but they probably don't have a job that they're getting paid for. So the working age population continues to grow in the forecast. Next slide, please. And then we just have a summary of the final forecast results here for you. And you can see some, again, slight changes in Atwater and the unincorporated area. And just want to note that the change in population in the unincorporated area that looks negative is really an administrative issue. The university moved from, or was incorporated into the city of Merced. And so the unincorporated area population will grow, but that change is reflected in 2025. Shifts population from the unincorporated into the city, and then the unincorporated area continues growing after that. So that concludes our remarks, and we're happy to take questions.
Right. Are there any questions by board members on the final regional growth forecast? Seeing any? Is there members of the public who would like to speak on this item? Anyone? Will bring it back to the board, or the chair will entertain a motion.
For a second.
A motion by Director Pedroso and a second by Director Pereira. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Moving on to 2D, approve the 2025 Governing Board meeting schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You have a copy of the most updated proposed schedule at your seat. This is something that we always seem to struggle with.
Your date is wrong, different than my date.
What?
Give me a new one.
Oh, yes, is this in the packet?
Yeah,
Yes,
okay,
the one at
sorry,
your table has, this is like, always a challenge every year. So our team put together the meeting schedule for 2025 based on the third Thursday of every month general rule. We then cross-check it to all of the regular conferences, things that we know about that are historically problematic. Then we also coordinate closely with particularly county staff, because if there's something that takes outside board members at once, it's challenging, but also paying attention to the city conferences and stuff that we know can be problematic. Of course, it's not perfect, but what you see reflects 2 dates in red that fall outside of the third Thursday of the month rule. And the change from the one you have in your hand versus the one that's in the packet was the move of the June meeting from, the 19th, I think, the 19th to the 12th. The 19th is the Juneteenth holiday, which, MCAG observes, and I believe some of the jurisdictions as well. So, September and October tend to always be a little challenging, but we have found that moving them one way or the other makes it easier for half the board and more complicated for the other half. So, that's been the process to vet the document we have to date, and we'd like any feedback that you may have.
Director McDaniel.
I do know the September meeting, RCRC is, our annual meeting is that week. In November, the CSAC annual meeting is 17th through the 22nd.
Okay. Those are always the, okay.
Yeah. I don't know who's I know that WIR,
yeah.
WIR is May, 22nd. I don't know who's, all five of us go to that one.
Okay. But RCRC, everyone goes to,
Yeah. And
CSAC, okay. So if you recall, this year, we didn't have a September meeting. It makes for a monstrosity of an October meeting, but that is an option. September tends to be very challenging if you add on top, the Valley Voice trip to DC, which Director McDaniel's the chair of, and I will be out. So we will.
I think, you know, my sense is like, look, this is what we have out in front of us. This is what your best guesstimate of what we could do is. What I would suggest then is all the directors, you know, League of Cities has their deal.
Yeah.
Let's, like, get back together. We know our January through April meetings look pretty solid.
Yeah.
But by January, our January meeting, staffs reach out to staff and see if there is a better date that we can move it to. And then get them on the calendar in January, within each potential changes. So are you comfortable approving, or do we have to approve for our January meeting now? And then like maybe adopting a more formal one with those changes reflected at our January meeting?
Technically, the board only needs to approve changes outside the third Thursday of the month.
Okay.
So we're set for the first quarter.
Okay, perfect. Then I would think that would be, we'll follow back up with everybody and see, maybe you can doodle pool the county and the cities and figure out, does it work to move them?
Yeah, that works. And we will focus on May, June, September, and November. I think those are the problematic.
Stacy, did you, have you already talked to the cities to see what League of Cities is and in this schedule?
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I don't think,
They have
we're
alternates.
just, city, we don't have as many, you know, we don't have as many folks who go to the conferences, and we all have backups, so I think that's really big.
Yep. And the league conference, I believe, got moved to the beginning of the month or the end, first week of October. So it did, the League of Cities conference didn't conflict. The one that usually gets us is when they have their city manager conference hits our TRB week. That's the big one. It's like the reverse problem of the board. So we'll do that. We will go ahead though and we're going to go ahead and add the the ones we know are set for especially January through April onto your calendars now. We'll get those invites out. We'll double check for alternatives, send out a poll. We'll put this back on in January.
Okay, perfect. So then we'll just
Okay.
table this item to that
Yep.
time. Any member of the public like to speak on this item? Not seeing anyone. We are moving on now to, there are no items under 11. We're moving on to 12, the TJPA action item. Item A is adopt a resolution number 2024-12-19-01, approving San Joaquin Valley Clean Vehicle Fueling Infrastructure Program project submission and allocation report, and we will turn it over to Serenity.
Good afternoon, directors. Thank you. As the title states, this is our project submission for the San Joaquin Valley Clean Vehicle Fueling Infrastructure, and this will be going towards the TJPA electric charging infrastructure for the current 9 electric own, as well as the cutaway buses that we do plan on continuing to purchase electric. This is part of TJPA's initiative to pursue all funding sources available for electric infrastructure and help minimize our usage of any local funds in this project. So we do have SB 125 funds, we have the CMAQ funds, and we will hopefully have $450,000 from the San Joaquin Valley Air District for this project. If there's any questions, I am happy to answer.
Questions by directors for Serenity? Anyone, any member of the public like to ask any questions on this item? Not seeing anyone.
For a move to approve.
Have a motion by Director Pereira.
Second.
I give it to Director Nagy, who has the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Moving right along, folks, to item 13. This is a discussion item. Proposed renaming of the TJPA Authority of Merced County, and
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a topic of conversation that has come up many times over the course of my 10 years here. Hasn't quite risen to the top to have, I guess, maybe the momentum to put it on this agenda. But as you know, we are in the process of updating our TJPA, JPA. And it is, so it seemed like the appropriate time, and it also is after attending the California Transit Association conference in November. It highlighted, for me at least, an interest to have the conversation. And the item to discuss, or what I'm proposing, is the consideration of changing the legal name of the Transit Joint Powers Authority for Merced County to a name that maybe follows more of like the industry standard, or the what you see in most transit agencies, where it usually ends in Transit Authority. So the options would be something like the Merced County Transit Authority, Merced Regional Transit Authority.
Waste Authority. You want to change the,
Transit.
oh, then 1313.
there's no document in the packet.
Oh.
Yeah.
I moved on. I'm rooting for you, James.
Yeah, I'm like, we can talk about that. That's a long one too. But you know, typically what if you look around other transit agencies, it's the region and the transit authority, whether it's a city or a county or a regional system or a local, or instead of the joint powers authority. So all that this item is just kind of a putting it out there to see if I'm just completely shot down or if there's an interest. It would be, I think the I don't want to say the preference, but the one that seems to work is Merced County Transit Authority. It would just be a legal change. We would not be rebranding the bus. It's just that the legal document, so you would say Stacy Guzman with Merced County Transit Authority, not Stacy Guzman with the Transit Joint Powers Authority for Merced County. Typically, people just stop listening after you hit joint powers. So obviously not critical question, but it's the best time to ask in the sense that we would change it in the renewed JPA that we have to do anyway. And then we could just roll it out from there. And it doesn't have to be decided today, obviously, because this isn't an action. This is just a discussion. I'm really looking at I hate this idea, don't ask me again, or sure, why not, or anywhere in between there.
Right. Questions,
We
comments?
keep the real critical business to December, obviously, clearly.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense to change it, and, I guess, like, Merced County mosquito abatement has nothing to do with Merced County, right?
Yeah.
Other than we're part of the JPA. That's a little funky for the cities, right?
Yeah.
But outside of that, Merced County Transit Authority.
Just kind of takes because Merced County is in our name now, but it takes it to be the last part and moves it to the front. So instead of saying we're the Transit Joint Powers Authority for Merced County, we start with our geography first. We did consider Merced Regional Transit Authority, but the unfortunate kind of acronym, because most will go by its acronym, is MRTA, and it could go wrong. Reminds me of 90s rap lyrics every time, yeah, like. But, so that's the other option. But it would be Merced Regional. It could be Merced County Regional Transit Authority. It's a little longer that way, but it's another option. We can also go out and poll our jurisdictions. We could do some outreach.
I think you have your jurisdictions all represented right here. So I guess probably the question is, does anybody here have heartburn about changing it to the Merced County Transit Authority?
Just have a question on what the cost is. Yeah.
It would be, this is nice when you guys ask questions that I anticipate. I had this exact conversation with Emily today. Because we're already going through the process of updating the JPA, I think this would be the time to make it the most minimal cost. It would be for staff time. Because we're not doing a full rebranding, you know, it's not like we're gonna go and just, you know, have to rewrap buses or anything. We can phase it, so as we would change it in the JPA. When you order new business cards, we'd change it. When you order, you know, in the regular intervals, we could phase it, because it's not a real outward facing, it's more of, for example, I think the one cost when we got to that point would be replacing the sign on the door, on the building, because it says Transit Joint Powers Authority for Merced County. Trying to remember what the cost was for that marquee sign. So just to replace the bottom would probably, I would anticipate being the biggest ticket item. But when he says a couple thousand, I wanted to say it was like under $3.
And what about any contracts that we have in action? Will those just roll over also, or?
I understand with Emily, but I understand is when we have contracts with, like when TransDev changed their name, the name change applies to the existing contract, so when it either gets amended, renewed, or what have you, then we could just change it over.
I like it.
Okay, so then, if you don't hear anybody opposed, Stacy, I think that's kind of direction given.
That's great. So we'll put some legwork into this. We'll spend a little time making sure we're not overlooking some cost or something, and then we'll bring it forward an item for action.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right, did anybody, members of the public, wish to make comment on this item? Not see anyone. We're moving on now to, the RWA action item 14, and we'll review the draft scope of work for master plan and direct staff to release a request for proposal, and we'll turn it over to James. Well, it says Stacy and James, so who wants to go first?
James can have it.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Good afternoon, board, members of staff, public. This is kind of a follow-up to an action that we had on our October agenda. Director Pedroza had asked to have an item added to the agenda to discuss the various options for management of the Regional Waste Authority. That goes pretty much hand in hand with something that Stacy and I have been talking about since I got here, and that is hiring a consultant to go out and do a full master plan for where is the future of the Regional Waste Authority. Looking at our facilities, we've already done a rate study that you approved last year to increase our rates. So that's one piece of this that the new consultant will look at what was already done. We won't have to go out and redo that rate study. And there's a number of things in part of this that we've been working on as we've gone through the last few years that we'll be able to just reach out, have the consultant review, put it together with some of the. Normally, we would not come to you for approval to release an RFP, but because this was an item that was asked to be added to the agenda, we did want to just try to get some feedback. The scope of work that was attached to this staff report is based on a study that Butte County did a few years ago for their Neal Road landfill. It had some very similar issues to those we have today as far as space utilization, remaining capacity, facilities, waste types coming into the site. Obviously, over the last few years, we've dealt with the changes to our operations because SB 1383, the state has passed additional laws dealing with textiles, batteries, single-use plastic. All of these things impact what happens to us out at the site when the material arrives on site. So it's a great time for us to go forward with this. For the last few years, we have had a standing placeholder in our operations budget for professional services. We had a $50,000 placeholder in there. We actually have a little over $2 million in that professional services budget. So I'm pretty certain now we've looked at it. We won't have to go into next year's budget to pay for this approval or contract. The Butte County project was approximately $300,000. They had some optional items and again, some areas that we're not going to have to recreate. So we still expect this cost probably somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000 for the total study, and probably 9 to 12 months to complete it after we award it. We can go on, unless anybody has any specific questions about the items in the plan, we'll go ahead and jump to the last slide that had our timeline. Our hope is to issue the RFP in early January, pending feedback from you as to changes in the scope. We'll go through our regular RFP process as far as timing, but my hope is that we would be able to bring it back to this board in April for approval and initiate the contract at the end of April. And with that, I'll take any questions.
I have one, is you've used the number 300,000 for them, but theirs isn't as scopy as ours, I'll call it.
Right.
You said 100 to 200,000.
Yeah, in the staff report, yeah. After we looked at it a little bit, we said there are some other areas, especially when we start looking at some of the different management options, that may be kind of new work that they haven't typically done. Most of the other items in the scope are pretty standard. If they've done this for somebody else within a year or two, a lot of that information is going to be the same. They'll just have to rework it for our.
So I guess, at least for me, then it needs to reflect that in what we're at. If you're saying the number could be up to 200,000, but this only says 125, you come back and they say it's going to be 200, and I'm going to be upset because we kind of agreed to that it would be 100, right? So I think if someone's going to make a motion on, it needs to reflect the true amount that you're asking.
I would ask that be changed to $200,000.
One thing that I know about people who do consulting is just because they did it for somebody else doesn't mean they give it to you for free, right? So.
One thing I know about consultants, they see if you allocate 200, then they say, oh, magically it's 200.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments by the board? Stacy, did you want to add something?
I'll just want to reiterate, to the budget question, we'll also, of course, come back to you all for the contract authorization.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, the estimate was really based, as James said, on what similar studies have happened on kind of the core master planning. What we don't know is the organizational structure and management, what that will do to that budget. So, we're giving you our best guess. I agree. I think, the 150 to 200, just in comparison, it's a big scope. So I think, for transparency purposes, a $200,000 kind of estimate is, I'd rather say that and it come in at 160 than, than come in and say, oh, it's we were expecting 100. I mean, we really have to get out there and see what it's going to cost to do this kind of work.
Well, or maybe we leave it at the 100, 125, knowing that it may be higher.
Well,
That lets them know that's how much we're thinking, and maybe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because we're gonna adjust it, no matter what, we're coming back to approve the number anyway.
Yep.
So if we're wrong now, it doesn't really matter.
And I will let you know, I've got about 6 different firms that have indicated interest in this. So we're hoping there's a little competition and they have to sharpen the pencil a little bit.
Gives us room to negotiate.
Perfect, okay.
So then I'll move that
Question.
recommendation at 125.
Yeah, it's basically, the action is to release the request for proposal, so.
But that's good direction.
Okay.
So we can use it for,
Is that a part of your
development of the
motion?
RFP.
Perfect, so we have a motion. Well, first off, let me ask, is there any member of the public like to comment on this item? Not seeing anyone. We have a motion on the floor by Director Pereira. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Director Pedroso. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Very much.
Moving right along to discussion item. This item will be presented separately in order to allow board members to ask questions or to provide staff direction. And as 15A is illegal dumping update. And we go back to James.
Right, and I'll go ahead and ask, got Nathan Bray here from County Public Works. Obviously, we've been working on this program over most of the summer. As you recall, in our fiscal 24-25 budget, approved $200,000 for use to abate the dumping fees. The county picks up the trash on the side of the road and brings it out to our facilities. We put that program into effect December 1st. And if we can bring up the next slide, really want to talk about some of the things the county has done from their end. One of the things we talked about when we discussed this in our budget earlier this year was that we really needed to gather some data as to where this illegal dumping was happening. And so what the county has done is they've added a module to an existing program they had where folks can report road problems or any number of other items, streetlights that are out, things of that nature. It's both a web-based app and an app you can put on your phone called See, Click, Fix. And I'll let Nathan talk about that a little bit more.
Perfect, thank you, Jamie. There's no microphone here, but I'm used to it, yeah.
It's a small room.
Yeah, good afternoon, Chair Directors. What James was talking about was the C-Clip Fix application. So, the county had previously subscribed to this application, but it wasn't until recently that we've really started to develop it, into what we believe will be a useful tool. What it does is it allows constituents to identify locations within the community, whether it's illegal dumping, potholes, signs they're missing, just general issues maybe within the public right-of-way. They're able to take a picture, they're able to geo-tag where that is, and what that does is they hit send, whether it's on their phone, whether it's on their computer. It allows us to track that information. It allows us to display on a map where we receive all of these different calls for service. And then it also allows us to track how fast it takes us to respond. And so these are all great metrics that we'll use to start to identify, do we have hot spots for illegal dumping? Do we have hot spots for potholes? And yes, we do, and we know where a lot of them are, but this gives us data to then discuss maybe further potential options, right? Are there enforcement activities that need to occur for this very targeted area? Without having the data, it's hard to identify that. And so we've met with James and identified a process for the county to be able to expedite our delivery of illegal dumping over to the 59 landfill and Billy Wright as well. And what this is, it helps get our workers back out there collecting more trash and debris and illegal dumping. The program which we're rolling out, it will help offset the cost of the tipping fees. It doesn't pay for county staff to go out there and do the work. It just really offsets the tipping fees. So super happy to have this program in place. It'll be interesting to see how fast we go through the funds this upcoming year. The county is committed to having hopefully one crew out every single day picking up illegal dumping. There are challenges when storms come and there are challenges with staffing levels, but that's kind of our commitment. And we've just stood up a new agreement with our probation team. We're also going to have kids out there that are on probation cleaning up our facilities as well. And so happy to answer any questions.
For their couches on Winton Way.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I made note of that. I haven't put it in the system yet, but I will.
Director McDaniel.
So when you're tracking this information, can we be as detailed to say what side of the road it's on? Because usually whatever side of the road it's on, we know what city it came from. Because it's on the right-hand side as you exit the city.
Exactly. We can request users be, and we do, we request them to be as detailed as possible. If we need to add additional clarification for that, we have the ability to, right? So we get a note that says, hey, there's dumping at the corner of Buhack and Oakdale, right? So we go out there, we take a picture of the debris, we take a picture afterwards so we can document it. We can then at that time add, is it on the north side? Is it on the west side? Or exactly.
Questions? Director Pedroza.
As part of this process, one of the things that you pick up, I know something, if there's addresses on it or something, or you guys documenting that as well, because you need a certain amount of documents for two identifying documents, right, with addresses so that you can go after the people that.
That is the goal. A lot of the times, a lot of the pieces of trash that we're picking up, or it's a fridge or something, yeah. Right? If there's like a pile that it looks like someone just dumped their green waste, or not the green waste, but their trash can, or the flatbed that they dumped out, yeah, we would
we're not necessarily looking to sort through it, but if it's there, yeah, we would work with our sheriff at that point.
I'll just say thank you.
I think this is something that we've been asking for, and is this the end all, be all, fix all? No, but I think it's a step in the right direction where we need to be working together, because it's unfortunate they dump in the cities, but the big stuff's getting dumped out in the unincorporated areas. And so there's a way that we can help offset some of that, but then have a plan in place. And I really appreciate that the app is going to track, to go back and look at where are our hotspots, because I think there's probably some stuff, I've said out in South Dos Palace, we need to put up some game cameras at the park.
No kidding.
So, and the quality of these things are so much better now, because it's just gotten a little better, but man, it's not great out there.
I was out last week on Pioneer, just on the other side of I-5 out there, and there's like 4 piles. So we're gonna report those, and yeah, we know where it's at.
And that's the thing, right? We can start to identify those areas, and then if we need to do game cameras, if we need to do, work with the sheriff to identify other means, license plate readers, right? There's different technologies out there.
Yeah. Well, how is this, or is this gonna work with the road captain or the Adopt a Road program that the county's done?
It will work, with them in terms of they will help identify, maybe areas that are maintained by different, groups, right? So the county recently enacted an Adopt a Road program where we allow community groups to come in and sponsor a section of road that they frequently go out and clean. Today, we've had one application, for a section of Campus Parkway. So super happy about that. As we receive, information on, like, is there a dump here? Is it close to the time that they said that they were gonna go out? We'll coordinate with them.
And the reason why I ask is because I know, at least in my district, there's a lot of people that are picking up the trash on our behalf, right? And so if there's a way that we could somehow tie that into no dump fee, they may just take it straight to the dump for us.
Okay.
Right? And it gets a little funky.
Exactly, there's some nuance there, yeah.
Yeah, our goal is to, we'll come back in 4 months, 5 months, see where we're at budget-wise. That's our one fear, is that, if we open it up to everybody, we're gonna go through that 200,000 pretty quickly. So, but
We don't wanna limit ourselves to where we have to physically pick it up and take it though, right? If there's a mechanism in place that we feel comfortable that, it's not just wide open, but it still makes sense, that's a conversation that we'll have and probably bring it back to the board.
And I know this is on a side note, but like, as we are in negotiations now with like Gilton's, like in the unincorporated areas on the west side, one of the things that, as part of their new deal that they're implementing is doing the bulky item pickup. I think it's like each household can call twice a year, and they go around, and I think that's gonna help with some of this. It's not gonna get rid of all of it, but it's gonna help with some of it. So I just appreciate the all-in kind of approach on how we're gonna try to address this problem that is just getting worse.
Thank you. That's kind of what, we had a conversation about, the education component of it as well, right? Rolling out these new agreements with the different haulers too, making sure that their constituents know that if you got a big item, give them a call.
Director Projo, did you?
No, I just want to say thank you. I know that the juvenile hall is starting tomorrow, is gonna do some cleanups around Merced County, and they're really targeting those areas that are put into the app. So tomorrow morning, I think we're from like 7 to, and when I was at the Juvenile Justice Committee meeting, they said that, these kids really, they have to earn it, right? There's their own point system, but they really like to do it, because it gets them out, and then they get lunch and stuff like that. So it's a good program that they're gonna start instituting, and they wanna get out as much as they can. Again, it's weather related, do they have the bodies, because again, it's on a reward and a point system. And, maybe we have so much because there's so many gosh darn Merced cleanups that I think people are dumping out Merced. Thank you.
All right.
I think, real quick, we've had success, one, with we have a refuse team that goes around in the city and does, and our volunteer cleanups as well. One thing, to Lloyd's point, is that, we'll have, we have a lot of volunteers who are pretty dedicated around the city and picking up a lot of this stuff. I know everybody in the county thinks it's only a county issue, but it's not, far from the truth.
But we know it comes from the cities.
I know, I just,
you guys don't want to plan on that, but shoot.
All the.
But no, there's, a designated spot where they have access to, which kind of limits, so if you're a volunteer, you want to do it, you have access to a little kind of dump site, you can take your stuff in there, which helps with some of the, some of that issue.
Yeah.
And people,
Are you offering up that spot for our people that have their,
Brought me a pin.
we already, shoot, well, I'll save my comments, but you guys are already,
All right, any other comments, questions? Anybody from the public wish to comment on this?
I have a quick question. So I know you mentioned that Merced County has a lot of contract with to get the bulky item pickup. We're saying that a lot of this is coming from the cities. In Livingston, we have the bulky item option, so like we can get rid of all of our stuff. Do we know if other cities in the county also have that? If residents are just dumping if they don't have to, that's kind of, it's one thing if you don't have the option, doesn't mean you should be dumping in the county, but they want to get rid of it.
I can speak factually that not every city has it, because I know I live in the city limits of Los Banos, and we don't have that as an option. No, the cities with, the Valley.
Same with Los Banos.
And Gusty.
Yeah.
And Elwater. But you can't have them come out and pick up bulky items, you just have, there's a fee.
There's a fee, they don't cover it with the
It's not a
contract.
huge fee, but there is a fee.
we have one, we have our city, yeah, we have bulky item drop-offs.
Do we know, generally, just curious, again, that's our first time here, do we know what cities? Did you have to call this, call from, or is it just?
No, I mean, listen, we say it in serious and joking, we don't have no proof of where it comes from, but it just, when you go and, let's say Los Banos, for example, you get off out there on Phillips Road, right? It's about 3/4 of a mile outside the city limits. It's a kind of a dirt road, and you see literally where they've taken a dump trailer and just dumped it out there. Do we know factually, did that person come from the county or the city? No, but when you see the areas, like, I say like the county people, they go further out. They go out to like Pole Line Road, right? Like way out of where the city people are gonna go to the first place that they can find that they feel like they're kind of hidden and there's not very much traffic there. So we are kind of guessing a little bit.
I don't know if it's necessarily cities, right? I don't know if there's a distinction between cities, maybe the unincorporated communities, but just like higher densely populated communities, I think that's kind of the difference.
Right. No further questions or comments? Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your hard work on that. Okay, we're moving right along. Other reports, we have item 16 is the Executive Director's report, and she's going to talk about the 2022 Sustainable Community Strategy.
I'm gonna talk about a couple of things, and hopefully you all can. Yes, I'm gonna read my email back to you all, but, our open house, we need 35 minutes to keep you guys here, so I won't take that long.
We'll start partying early.
Especially because I hate speaking with this darn mask on, so, okay. I did just want to mention, I did send an email to give, more detail, so that I didn't go on, at this point, but the long and short of it is that we received notice just after right before Thanksgiving, that our 2022 Sustainable Community Strategy was approved by, the California Air Resources Board. And you may say, but Stacy, it's days away from 2025. And I would say, yes, it is. And we submitted our 2022 SES, just, after the new year of in the first quarter of 2023. It should take a 60-day review by CARB. And, as you could tell, it's beyond 60 days, and now we just got it approved in November. I will say, though, that while that sounds treacherous, it is in some ways, because it's kind of the story that everyone is living, with the SES review process, taking a lot of time. There's a lot of back and forth. It does hold hostage the ability to compete for SB1 funds. So if one of your projects one of the jurisdictions wanted to compete for a TSEP, a transit or a trade corridor enhancement project, and we did not have that 2022 approval, it technically would be ineligible to be awarded. So there are some issues there, but the good news is that, MCAG has an interesting history with our SESs over the last few years. Our very first one in 2014, it was right the first week that I started here. our first one, we did not meet our target and attempted to do an alternative strategy, and it got dicey. I'll just say that. There were some legal situations. So we've grown quite a bit, and the good news is that this is the quickest and the most pain-free approval that we've had to date. We were waiting for there to be quite a bit of back and forth, and, oh, you need to change this, and how about that? And we just got an email that said, go forth and prosper. So really excited about that. Kudos to the team for making that happen. And it's just in time for us to start, as Elizabeth mentioned, our next RTP SES that will be submitted next year. And we get to start the process all over again. So that's the big, I wish it was that easy. I did also want to mention that you'll see, well, I should have started with this, but since there's a bullet, want to welcome our one of our new directors. We have 3 new directors this year. Mayor Reed of the City of Dos Palace, which you are now referred to as Director Reed. You get a new title here too. Small world that we knew each other, or our families know each other 30 plus years ago. Her mom was my 8th grade teacher, and I was a cheerleader with her little sister. So that was a long time ago, but I have pictures. It's not pretty. So happy to have you on board. Look forward to working with you and continuing all the great work we're doing out in Dos Palace. The last thing I want to mention is the Regional Rail Planning Committee has a meeting on January 30th. So I know several directors are involved there. That meeting will happen here. Should already be on your calendars. We'll give you an update at the February meeting. And then lastly is just another, you're going to hear this every meeting between now and April, is the policy conference. MCAG is hosting the Regional Policy Conference. It is April 9th through the 11th. Technically, the 9th is a reception that will be at the LCAP Hotel here in town for, welcoming our guests. The LCAP is a preferred hotel for our attendees. And then the one full day, which is the 10th, will be out at the UC. And then we are coordinating dinner at actually a pretty fun, casual dinner out at the Tarmac that evening. And then the next day, which is Friday the 11th, it's traditionally a half a day of the conference, and we will have it at the Merced Theater here across the street on Main Street. The conference theme is Fast Forward 2050. So here we start 2025. It's technically halfway through our planning horizon year of 2050. We're going to really talk about trying to imagine, if you think about when 2050 will be here, our passenger rail projects are happening. We're transitioned to zero emission vehicles. All the things we're working on right now will be delivered. Yeah, hydrogen, yes. What does it look like? How are people moving? The inland port will be up and running. Like, how are we going to be living? We know that from the demographics that we're going to have an aging population, so the housing types are going to change. So really trying to kind of focus on maybe taking a minute to say how things have changed from 2000 to 2025, and then what do we expect the next 25 years to look like. We're excited to have a keynote speaker that is going to come be speaking from the AI field. So just really leaning into the future and technology that's to come. So we anticipate opening registration here by the end of the year. Sponsorships are coming in. It's going to be a lot of fun. We are fully leaning into, especially for a future theme, the regulations, the rules, the way we're moving and developing is really getting people out of cars and onto buses. So this is going to be designed as a car-free conference. We are going to have transit run from the preferred hotels to the UC. We're going to have transit from the hotels to the Tarmac. We're going to have buses available. So we're going to make it happen. I know, I see Lloyd, he's like, oh, I don't know, it's gonna be great.
Buses will be full for a change.
And with that, I am done. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you, Stacy.
Yeah.
I won. The under.
Director's report, start with Director Pedroso. Anything?
Then yet, Darren.
No, hers.
Oh, hers.
Director Nagy.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Supervisor Pereira are coming out to Gustine to swear in our new council on Tuesday night. I'd like to remind everybody that the city-county dinner is in Gustine in January. So, you all there, and, make sure the bus that Ted Smalley is supposed to get on is delayed 2 hours.
Okay.
Have him wait for it. All I have, and Merry Christmas.
We will show up, we will show them up in terms of bus service. It will happen.
Director Reed?
Thank you for having me. I'm listening, but as I get to know everybody, I'll talk a lot. And I'll have a lot of questions, and a lot of people in Dallas Palace will use that app to tell you about all the potholes everywhere.
Not for the city, for the county.
I know, that's what I was gonna say, like, just decipher those away. And, Santa Fe grade, that'll be one. And, so, I look forward to that, so that we can tell our citizens, hey, if it's county, this is where you go. So that's my whole thing is getting people to the right places, because our town seems to think that certain people have certain power, and, we just don't, and they need to go to the right people and not watchdogs.
I promise you, you'll wish you have 1% of the power that people actually think you have.
No, I don't want that. I want people to go to Dwayne Jones.
That's who we call.
Director Pereira?
Yeah, well, it was an honor to come out there, and Pat didn't buy me dinner for swearing him in. However, the veterans, and auxiliary groups, were having their Christmas dinner and invited me, so I got a nice turkey dinner for driving to Gustine. I want to wish y'all a Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year, honestly, and then thank you for, taking some time to listen to, these young folks. I don't know about you, but I get people all the time that come and demand stuff, and it's not logical, and, and these folks just really did it the way government is supposed to work, and so I was real thankful that they could come this afternoon and speak to you, so thank you.
Director Serrato?
It's a good project, for sure. Director Reed, welcome to our group. Special thanks to, Director Pereira for that comment. Wondering if I had been working out. The answer is not really, but I still appreciate it. And then, big thanks to the, want to acknowledge, the county, and especially Supervisor Pedroso for his work on the fire issues. I know the county certainly facing some challenges, in that area, and us being able to come together, your leadership on that was crucial. And, so just wanted to acknowledge, you and everything you did, in particular, and the county too as well, for their work on it. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Welcome aboard. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, so just be ready for it. And, anyway, everybody have a very Merry Christmas.
Short and to the point, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Perfect. I too want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Director Reed, look forward to working with you more closely, not just on this board, but as the new mayor of Dallas Palace. Welcome aboard. One point, I just think that we need to ask Caltrans to have the reports delivered to us like the day before, because I think it would even be helpful to have that. I know it comes in an email, but if we can at least get it printed and have it in front of us, you can't see that stuff. So I think that would be helpful, because it is valuable information, and it's helping to track the stuff that we bring up at a meeting before he's following up on it. And I know those things are important in all of our jurisdictions. So if we could do that, I think that would be super grateful. I would be super grateful for that. And then I want to put it on everybody's radar. Our chair situation is a little unique right now. As vice chair, I'm sitting in on this meeting. We're going to have to make some decisions at the next meeting with who is going to assume the role for the chair for the rest of this year. There's a couple potential options on there, but just want to highlight that for everybody that we'll be discussing that at the next meeting. Right. With that, meeting is adjourned.